it would be far less effort to manipulate our puny mortal minds than to create, gravity altering and dimension altering technology.
Yeah.
All I have to do is mess with your perception of it, and then that's it. And that's something that can be done through hypnosis. So I've hypnotized people before,
Really? Okay.
for entertainment purposes, not for regression or anything like that. It was like, your feet are stuck to the floor. You lose the ability to remember the number 3. You forget your own name, that type of deal. And it's for entertainment, and it works, and it's wild. It's mind blowing. It feels like a superpower when you do this. It's very dangerous because it's a slippery slope. But then you get these people in these states, and you quickly realize, and there's a lot of books on this, you can manipulate all of their senses, and the only limit is your creativity. First, I want to touch on how we talked about a little bit like Psyop, is made for this malevolent force, and that we use a lot of the same deception tactics within performing magic, or creating the framework of a magic trick, rather. And I think that's very conducive to a good magic trick, is allowing the spectator to create their own framework of reality, suggested by us, but they have to feel like they've created it themselves, because that strengthens the trick, much like a psyop.
One of my absolute favorites nowadays, Chris Ramsay. This is a amazing interview, really. Because this is kind of like he's not inside his little room. I was watching him really closely, but he's not like doing the magic tricks. And, I guess he is in his little room right there. Well, but we're not. We're not at his. He's not doing his production thing, which this video starts with saying is basically the best. It's one of the best, but it's probably the best. I think he's right. Third Eye Drops with Michael Phillip. It's always kind of a fun, casual chat.
If I tell you so-and-so, such information is true or false, you're going to retain that until you do your own research. And by doing your own research, you don't know that I've implanted that website there. But you go to the website, now you're like, I'm going to look at this myself, and it says the opposite of what I said. And I did my own research, and it says the opposite. And I go, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
You don't know that I put that website there.
Right.
And that I compelled you to go Google it. And now that you've done your research, the psyop lasts longer. It doesn't fade away so much, because anytime someone says anything, you've done your research. And this applies to magic as well.
And it's fun to see Chris Ramsay for 2 hours just kind of chatting about a bunch of stuff. I guess the chapters aren't on there. That's okay. My favorite part is, and they do it a few times in here, but really is when he's talking about the magic. Kind of the point of his whole interview is that he can kind of see a little bit of what's going on with ufology and the conspiracy and other stuff because of his perspective, which is being a magician, a mentalist, and a movie producer, a podcast producer, and a remote viewer. And he's kind of triangulating even through the grift of what's going on a little bit. Or he thinks he is. And I don't think he ever actually says what he thinks is going on in this interview, which, like I said, didn't really have there was no syllabus.
In magic, we create something called it's like contrast. Essentially, your objective view of reality and what is happening there needs to be contrast there.
Mm-hmm.
For the bigger the contrast, without becoming fantasy, the bigger the contrast, the more you can stretch that, the greater the reaction, the greater the moment of wonder or astonishment, right? That's stretching that. To help stretch that contrast, we allow the spectator to create the framework of their own reality through our suggestion.
We react to UFO whistleblower Jake Barber. So we're talking about Psionic assets. So we're talking about, mind powers. And we compare his experience between stage magic and real magic to consciousness and the UFO phenomenon. So what I was saying is my favorite part is how he kind of directly relates it to the magic, to the illusions. So there's several parts in here where he kind of gives like a real technical explanation of an illusion, which is really fun. He is kind of making the point throughout the interview. It kind of builds up that disclosure is happening. It's happening in these little bits and pieces through culture and people, like you name one, Elizondo, Grush. He just kind of throws it in there at one point, but he says, follow the money.
Handing them an object to inspect, to look at. It signals to them that, this object clearly is untampered. Is if they're handing it to me. Right. And so your baseline becomes, this is a regular object, whether a spoon or, I don't know, whatever object you want to think of. So you think, this is a regular object. He wouldn't hand it to me otherwise. So already your baseline is, I did my research. I came up with this. I've tested it myself. And I know this to be a real spoon.
Spent some time talking about his own experiences with calling in UFOs. He's just staring off into the sky and mentally sending off all his energy and saying, hey, and that they answer back. There's a fun little part in the middle here where they kind of get into kind of like shit talking on math. Statistics, which immediately leads into a very kind of short piece on hypnosis, which turns into his long explanation of an illusion. But he says, through hypnosis, he and anyone who's doing it can learn really quickly that you get like control over everything in a person. So you can make them pee their pants. You can make them not feel you touch them. And then he says that's how he thinks the UFOs work. Is the UFOs, have technology, device that reaches out to you and says, you didn't see me. You can't see me.
Then, through misdirection, showmanship, suggestion, the spoon bends. Okay. As a magician, or as someone who, if there's someone out there that works in Psyop, they'll do the same thing. You're engineering a memory.
And he, mentions that he's been reading through the Lacerda interview or Lacerda files from 4chan. And she says that's how he says that's the, reptilian Lacerda says that's how they kind of like do their thing, is they reach out to humans and say, you see me as a human. Kind of right after the magic, or the magic leads to him talking about miracles, which is related to the maths also. Like, I think he brings you right back by saying, here's a really fun like math statistical paradox that in like a group of 25 or 50 people, you'll have 2 people with the same birthday. And then he kind of finishes off with, that's how we've ended up with AI, which AI may be through all these other breadcrumbs leading us to full disclosure. So it's there's a lot of topics in there I didn't even cover. I probably only got 3/4 of them right there. And it's UFO buddies sitting around having a chat about ufology.